You ain't nothing but you ain't nothing but a hound dog. Well, you ain't never gonna ever have your hand on friend. Well, that's just right. You know that you was fine. Well, that's just right. Well, you ain't never gonna ever have your hand on him. You ain't nothing but a hound dog. Crying on my. Well, you ain't never gonna ever have your hand on friend.
Elvis Presley is by far the greatest entertainer of all time. He has more gold, platinum, and diamond records than any artist in the world. He was ranked by the Rolling Stone magazine as the third greatest artist of all time. He was an American icon for many decades, and arguably he is still one. Some people did not see him as an icon, though, but instead as a harbinger of everything that was wrong with America, as he was part of the black community, and they thought he sexualized music. In the late 1960s, Leonard Bernstein got interviewed, and he said Elvis Presley was the greatest cultural force in the 20th century. He introduced the beat to everything and changed everything. Music, language, clothes. It's a whole new revolution. The 60s come from it. Elvis Presley was the man who changed America in all aspects, but during his career, he had a lot of problems which made it very difficult to achieve his childhood dream. The story begins in Tupelo, Mississippi, where he was born on January 8, 1935, to the very humble Gladys and Vernon Presley. At a young age, he participated in numerous talent shows. Then at the young age of 13, his family moved to Memphis, Tennessee, and this little kid didn't know that his legacy would start here. Influences when he was younger were almost all country music and the black R&B. Two of his biggest inspirations were Big Mama Thornton and Arthur Big Boy Crudup. Big Boy Crudup was the bigger of the two inspirations, one time saying, "If I had any ambition, it was to be as good as Arthur Crudup." This style of music inspired Elvis's music in the future years, and because of this, it will cause a lot of problems. Both Big Mama Thornton and Big Boy Crudup were both African American. Elvis began his career in the legendary Sun Record in Memphis, Tennessee in 1953. Sam Phillips would eventually sell his contract to RCA Victor in 1965, where he was almost an international sensation. Because of the unique music, he also got in a lot of trouble, challenging the social and racial barriers. People from older generations, such as adults, didn't like this. Maurice Wallace said in one of his works, in the 1950s and 1960s, people believed Elvis to have a negative influence on the American youth. It was believed his music did not have good moral values. Elvis's music was considered distasteful, improper, and immoral since it was mixed with roots of African American music which people were prejudiced against. He created a new era in U.S. history, but the problems had just started for the young Elvis Presley. His innovation in music was an instant hit, making people dance all over the world. But because of this, people said that his performances and the kind of moves they made with his hips were sexual. After his first appearance on The Ed Sullivan Show, which was his first broadcasted performance, tons of angry parents began to call the producers and rage about the sexualized dance moves, thus forcing the producers to shoot Elvis from the waist up on his next appearance on the show. Before his rise to fame, Elvis would regularly go to a black church instead of a white church, because before his move to Memphis, Tennessee, he lived on the black side of town, and which started him off on bad terms with the locals. This is where Elvis began to see the black community for what they are, which is people. After his first recording of Blue Moon, Kentucky, Dewey Phillips was the first person to air it. It had enraged the people of Memphis, Tennessee. On a later date, Dewey was beat up in an alleyway after playing the song. Looking for a place to air Elvis's songs, Sam Phillips was going across country to promote him, but no radio station was willing to play his song. Mr. Phillips eventually had to bribe the radio DJs, but they would just take the money and not play the song. Feeling defeated, Elvis and Mr. Phillips would return home, where Elvis was an in-town sensation among the people of Memphis, Tennessee. He would play local shows where the older people would just up and leave when Elvis came out on stage, but the youth loved him. Elvis, following the steps of his idol, Arthur Big Boy Crudup, covered his songs such as That's Alright with Mama, which he recorded at Sun Records. The song was a hit among the youth and his mama, but because it was originally sung by a black man, the older people did not like his song. An album was eventually released where Elvis was able to sing with his idol, Arthur Big Boy Crudup. Arthur Big Boy Crudup eventually died March 28, 1974, just 3 years before the legend he inspired passes away. Elvis's first international hit was Hound Dog, which is originally sang by Big Mama Thornton. The reason people began to like Elvis is because he was represented at the time by RCA Victor instead of a small record company in Memphis, Tennessee. Elvis would continue to rise in fame as the youth who loved him were able to buy more of his records as they got more and more jobs. But Elvis still struggled to sell records among the older generation. Concerts that he played at tended to get emptied out when he came on stage, as people would tend to leave when he came out. As Elvis's career began to skyrocket, the most unfortunate thing happened to Elvis. He had to put his entire career on pause after he was drafted into the U.S. Army to fight in Vietnam. When he returned home, it would seem that he had gained more fame while in the Army, as his shows began to sell better because we were entering the peak of the Civil Rights Movement, and more people became open to African American culture. Elvis's love for all people can be shown in the lyrics of his closing song from his '68 comeback special, If I Can Dream, where Elvis sings, where all my brothers walk hand in hand, which showed that Elvis was tolerant of all races and religion. Elvis, a very religious man, would also wear the Star of David and the Hebrew Chi symbol because he did not want to miss heaven due to technicality. This shows that Elvis was not only accepting of all race, but also of all religions. In his '68 comeback special, he also performed a song he hadn't sung since his day at Sun Records, That's Alright with Mama. He did this to show he hadn't changed since his days at Sun Records and pay tribute to the man who inspired him to be there, Arthur Big Boy Crudup. Just a year after his '68 comeback, Elvis released a song called In the Ghetto in 1969. The song focuses on a child born in Chicago to a poor family. It starts off with the day he was born, and as the song goes on, it progresses through his life. Towards the end of the song, the boy that the song focuses on is killed as he tries to steal a car. Before this, Elvis had a deal that he wouldn't delve into politics with his song. The reason Elvis broke his promise not to delve into politics was because that he personally believed that African Americans were still mistreated in the American society. In 1977, Elvis's life was tragically taken away from him after he overdosed on prescription pills. When you hear the name Elvis Presley, you're most likely not to think of a civil rights hero, but in some aspects, Elvis helped diversify the world of music. Before Elvis came along, it was frowned upon for a white person to even think about singing a song a black man would sing. Thanks to Elvis for revolutionizing music, one race does not have to stick to one particular type of music. Instead, any man of any race can sing any type of song without being heavily frowned upon or sent death threats like Elvis was.
Maybe I didn't treat you quite as good